Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a great day so far and welcome to today's video where I am going to be sharing my top 10 eyeshadow palettes of 2024, but not just that. No. I'm also going to be ranking them. So you're not only getting a top 10, you're getting that top 10 in my order of most to slightly less most loved. So if you want to know what my number one eyeshadow palette is, what my 10th is, what my 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th are, then you've come to the right place. So without further ado, let's get started. So this was tough, guys. I'm not going to lie to you because why would I? What would I gain? It was a challenge not only to pick my top 10 and leave some of my babies left behind by the wayside in my drawers, but to separate these out and to split them. Oh, it was tricky. You know, they all offer something delightful. It just depends really on your mood and your preferences. And the next person would probably have a very different order to mine. But isn't that just what makes life so beautiful? So I am going in my own personal order. This is not the order that I think is, you know, necessarily the best performing or the most inventive. It's the one that I love the least to the most, but I don't love any of the least. This is my top 10. I love you all, okay? I know you're listening. They're all a love, but some I love a little bit of fairy dust cherry on top, a bit more. You know what I'm saying. So in 10th place, we have Natasha Denona's Roxa palette. This is a tale of two halves for me. I adore about 1/3 of this palette. There are several shades in here that are really right up my street when it comes to purples. I've noticed I'm a fussy little lady, okay? Not all purples were created equally, if that makes sense. So this purple and this purple and this purple and a little bit of this purple, these are my purples, okay? These muted, smokier purples. You know what I mean? But then a lot of this palette is like this purple, this purple, this purple. These are more not my type on paper. These louder, brighter, more scary purples. So that's the thing about this palette. There are shades and looks that I can do with this palette that I absolutely love, that would have this palette, were it all that type of purple, be more like 1st, 2nd, 3rd. And the formulas in here are undeniably amazing. Some of the best mattes and certainly some of the best shimmers there are out there, and some of the most stunning combinations. But I feel like this palette is mostly this deeper, richer, brighter purple, and I prefer my purples a bit more muted. So I can get a few looks out of here that I'm obsessed with, but I do feel like a lot of the palette is just not my colours. It's a bit too scary purple, bright purple, intimidating purple, and a bit less muted, smoky, dusky, rosy purple. Does that make any sense to anyone but me? I'm not sure, but I do like it. And like I said, I can get, if I stick within the purples that I love, I'm obsessed with the look that I come out with. So I've got a lot of fun and enjoyment out of it. I just feel like a lot of the shades in there are just not quite my thing. Moving on to 9th place. And this is one that I put into 10th and then I put it up into like 7th, and it went back and forth, and it very much depends on my mood. But it's Pat McGrath. Who? It's Pat McGrath's Mega Mothership for Holiday 2024. I really have so much fun with this. It's so pretty, it's so creative. There's a lot of shadows in here that are super fun. There's some stunning shimmers. I absolutely, these are so creamy, these shimmers. Whenever I touch these, my heart just sings, and there's so many options and possibilities and combinations. And some, I mean, these are outrageously beautiful. these shimmers. They're stunning like nothing else. Pat McGrath just lives on her own planet and we're just all orbiting around her at this point. So it's a lot of fun, but it is obviously very, very colourful. So I really have to be in my bravest mood to choose this among a lot of these other palettes that are a bit more wearable for me. I love the formulas in here. I love the combinations. I love that we've got some really wearable mattes. So it actually helps me to make this wearable for me when I am but a fraidy cat, okay? And it's a lot of fun. There's a couple of, you know, shades in here that I could definitely do without. And I wish, as I said many times, that this blue, this aquamarine, could have been in the same league as these other shimmers. I feel like that shade really let the side down because it was like the shade in the palette. You know, when you look at this palette, I feel like the shadow most people are so excited about is this one, and then it's just not as impactful and as blinding and as beautiful and as special as a lot of the other shimmers. So that does let it down a bit, but I've had a lot of fun with it. There's a lot of options. It's a great price point and I have so much fun whenever I pick it up. My hand is going to be exceedingly glittery for the rest of this day. Why is that not coming off? Oh my God. In 8th place, a little palette that many of us have probably forgotten about, but it's Pat McGrath's little quad that came from her spring collection. This is Opalescent Orchid. And I feel like I have an unpopular opinion about this quad, but I love it. This was one that I very much picked up because I was so intrigued by this shadow, which is kind of the greener version of the one we just spoke about in the large palette. I didn't know that I would get a look out of these 4 shadows. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with these, but when it arrived, I just found it so softly pretty. It's really perfect for spring, this little quad. And the look I came up with was really wearable for me. It was fun, it was pretty, it was very spring, but it still felt soft enough that it worked for me and that I could wear it. And I just think the packaging is so pretty and the shadows and the look that you get is softer, definitely not the same level of impact as her Mothership Mega or her usual Mothership formulas, because this is one of her dreaded Made in America palettes. But because it has that softer formula, it made these real like colourful pastels wearable for me, and I've really enjoyed it. I think it's really fun. It's very different to anything else I have in my collection, and the kind of one look that you get out of this, or the way that I use it, is just lovely. It's so pretty and spring perfect. And in 7th place, we have my YSL Couture quad. This is number 710, the one that came out this year, and it is that peachier number. And this is just so pretty. This is the ultimate elegant, refined, pretty little colour story. It's such a perfect colour story for me. You've got absolutely everything. You've got, you know, a lighter transitional shade, something a bit smokier, a bronzier sort of lid shade, and then this really wet looking peachy shimmer, which I absolutely adore. And the overall look is really beautifully elegant, really, you know, neutral, but it has a lot of impact based off this wet look shimmer, and it's just so soft. And I find the tones in here really flattering. It's a small little quad, but it's mighty, and it does the one look perfectly. You don't need anything else. You're not reaching for a transition shade or a matte or a shimmer. It just does this thing, which is, you know, very neutral, very sort of soft glam, but it just does it so beautifully. And I adore the Couture clutch packaging. It's just the whole vibe of the palette and the colour story in the packaging is very elegant, very sophisticated, and very pretty. In 6th place, we have the Viseart Sireneuse Etendu, and this is the palette that really put Viseart back on my radar, because it's just very much a different palette to the YSL Couture clutch, but in the same way, I feel like it does the thing that it does just beautifully. It's everyday, natural, soft glam, to the moon and back. It's perfectly refined and sophisticated. It's not too over the top, it's not too loud, but at the same time it's eye-catching and it's pretty and it's so easy to work with. Everything in here is just perfect. Seamless mattes that blend themselves, gorgeous smooth shimmers that have so much reflection, but they're not overly sparkly or glittery, so they're perfect for more mature eyes, a bit softer, and you can totally amp them up by using them wet at the same time. This is going to get used to death, I fear, because this is the sort of palette that sort of day to day I'm just constantly reaching for. I said in a previous video that if I was still working in the office, this would be what I would be wearing every day to work. It's a sort of really easygoing but still super pretty palette that is just so easy and perfect for everyday office makeup, understated, elegant, professional, but still super pretty at the same time. My hand is just becoming one big glitter party. I'm not mad about it, to be honest. So now we have my top 5 of 2024, and in 5th place, just sneaking in there, it's the Bobbi Brown It's the Bobbi Brown Dream Gleam Luxe eyeshadow palette, and this, very much like Viseart, is the item or the palette that put Bobbi Brown back on my radar as a brand. I mean, who knew Bobbi Brown was doing eyeshadow palettes like this? For a start, the packaging is unmatched. It's without question the most beautiful packaging of any palette that I have on my desk in front of me. It's stunning, visually a delight to behold, and all the little touches like the Bobbi Brown logo across there, the stand up on its own, really nice, luxurious feeling, weighty, really nice quality mirror. All of it just adds to how much I love this palette. But this is just such a comprehensive palette. Again, it's mostly a neutrals palette, but it has, you know, a couple of more fun, icier, almost bluish leaning shimmers, but it's just so cohesive and comprehensive. You've got, you know, a really natural transitional shade. You've then got a cooler and a warmer, smokier shade. You've got a brow arch highlighter or a creamy in a corner highlighter. And then you've got a range of shimmers, some more neutral and then some more icy and fun and wintry. It's, you know, for only an £8, it's got everything you could need to do a few different looks, to go from daytime to nighttime, office to party. It's very flexible as far as when you might want to use it. And the formulas are stunning. I had no idea that Bobbi Brown were doing eyeshadows like this. These Italian made, silky, wet looking, molten metal shimmers. I had no idea Bobbi Brown had this going on. Okay, who forgot to tell me? I don't know. And the mattes as well, not only are they really soft, very easy to blend and build, but they are just the perfect combination. They're really silky and they just have everything between the 4 mattes that you could want from any look. They're so smooth and silky. It's absolutely everything you could possibly need. If you wanted like one palette to do daytime, nighttime, office, no makeup, full glam, full beat in as few shades as possible, you couldn't really go far wrong with this palette. I absolutely love it. And I was really surprised that Bobbi Brown had eyeshadows like this. I did not know that in 2024. Well, I did know it in 2024. I didn't know it in 2023. Is what I should say. This was a year of surprises for me. In 4th place, perhaps the most boring of all of these palettes, but for me, one of the most exciting. It's Lisa Eldridge's Fawn eyeshadow palette. It's so flipping pretty. This palette is everyday elegance in a palette. It's everyday soft glam makeup, but with something super special and luxurious about it. It's the most sort of everyday easygoing palette, but with an absolute sprinkling of luxury and refinement on the top. Lisa's formulas, these mattes, they're like silk to touch. They're so soft and pretty, and they really are such a dream to use. They can just be as built up or as toned down as you like. These are just, I mean, do you see how they swatch? They never lose their pigment. They're really soft and smoky, and there's something very silky about the feel of these shadows. And then we have these stunning shimmers, something a bit fun in a duochrome, and then something beautifully impactful, that wet look shimmer, absolutely stunning. And the overall effect of this palette, again, it's so luxurious and refined, very much in a similar vein to the YSL, but you've got a bit more choice here, and so you can do something a bit different. You can do something a bit softer, you can do something a bit more fun, or you can go ham and use the whole palette. Again, this packaging is divine. I love how sleek and small and compact these palettes are, but this is just your go-to everyday, day in, day out palette with an extra little sprinkle of Lisa Eldridge magic. I love it so much. It really does tickle my pickle as far as my neutral loving heart is concerned. And then we have the top three, and these three were very, very hard to separate. Again, I've gone back and forth moving them about, particularly between the second and third places, but in third I've gone with Natasha Denona's Golden palette. I love this so much more than I thought I would. From the name and looking at this on paper, I thought it's going to be too yellow, too gold, too yellow gold, in fact, for me and my preferences. You know, I'm one of these people who's always disappointed there's another yellow gold in Pat McGrath's Motherships, because yellow golds are just not for me. They're not a shade I like in makeup, and I presumed this was going to be all yellow gold based off of the name and the packaging and the photos and how the palette looks. But in reality, this is much more neutral than its name would suggest. You have definitely got, you know, some yellow golds like this one and this one. These are, you know, my nightmare. This is what I thought this whole palette would be, but in fact the vast majority, no, I don't like these, but the vast majority of the palette is much more neutral shades for the most part. Really lovely neutral mattes, stunning shimmers. Some of these shimmers are absolutely delightful. We've got more browns and more neutrals than I expected, which made it a very pleasant surprise for me, much like Roxa. You know, I'll stay away from a few shadows like these and I stick to these, and then I'm really in love with the palette and the looks that I can get out of it. I will say that the reason this is number 3 and not number 1 or 2 is because the other palettes do not have quite the many unnecessary shades or almost duplicates. You know, we've got 4 mattes that are extremely close in tone here. We've got, again, 3 shimmers that are very close, 4 even, and then these 2 are very similar. So there are definitely a lot of, as we have come to expect from Natasha Denona's MIDI palettes, there are a lot of almost repeats, almost dupe shades of themselves, too close together. We need more variation between some of these shadows. So that's why it's not second or first, because I feel like these other 2 palettes do that a lot better than this one did. But the looks I get out of this, I always love, and I think the formulas in here are incredible. And when I steer clear of the very yellow gold shades, I absolutely love the looks that I come out with. Really beautiful, elevated, gorgeous, soft glam, neutral delights. So in second place, a palette I have been absolutely loving ever since it came into my life, is the Huda Beauty Icy Nude. This is so beautiful. I love this palette. It's by far my favorite ever Huda Beauty palette. The performance is better than any of her other palettes. The mattes are creamier, silkier mattes. The shimmers are less chunky than she typically does for the most part. Really beautiful looks. I think this colour story is so clever because it's cooler and it's got that icy vibe and perfect for winter and holiday as it is targeted. but in such a wearable way. I'm wearing it today, and every time I use this palette, which has been a lot because I'm drawn to use it so much, because I like it so much, every time I use it, regardless of the shades I use, I end up just loving the look I've come up with. It's so wearable for me. I'd wear this every day of the year, yet it's quite different to, you know, a lot of what we see. The mattes, like I said, we've got a really nice variation. Maybe there's like these two mattes that are a little close to each other, but other than that, there's really no other shades that are quite similar, you know, as far as their tone or the depth. We've got a really nice array of different shades. We've got a lovely balance of mattes to shimmers, which I really like. I love that we've got a couple of lighter mattes as well. I've really enjoyed playing with those, like in the inner corner of my eye, as a really bright but matte pop there of brightness. And just these shimmers are just absolutely next level. They are stunning, and they really have so much impact on the eye. They're so beautiful. I'm just never anything other than wowed by the look that I end up with whenever I use this palette. It's so pretty, so versatile. You can get so many looks out of it, and I love every single one. And while it's like quite fun and different, like I said, I'm never afraid to use it, and I find it so wearable. It's just really in my comfort zone of what I really enjoy. Those softer, smokier, mauvey tones, almost some greyish tones in there. Really soft and pretty, but wearable and fun. It's got such a nice, like perfect sweet spot of where it sits, and I think the colour story for me is just been absolutely nailed. And so we have but one palette left on my desk to talk about, the ultimate fighting champion of eyeshadow for 2024. My favourite palette of the year, my number one. It is, of course, Natasha Denona's I Need a Warm palette. And if you didn't need any more evidence of how boring and basic I am, it's that this is just my heart's desire, and I can't and I won't fight it any longer. Okay, it's fine to be boring. It's allowed. It's a choice, and it's my choice. This just has my heart so flipping much. I really didn't know what to think. I think when I first heard about this I Need a Warm palette, I assumed this was going to be, in my mind, I envisioned the bronze palette. That's what I thought. It's going to be ridiculously warm, copper red warm tones, because it's called I Need a Warm. It's so much more neutral than I expected it to be, and so much more varied and versatile. I think this is one of the best Natasha has ever done as far as not repeating shades over and over again. We have got these two mattes on the top row that are closer than I would have wished them to be. They are different, but they are like close enough that I feel like we could have done one or the other. But other than that, I feel like we don't really have any real dupes or really too close shades. We've got a nice variance. It's super versatile. This, you know, if I had to use one palette every day for the rest of my life, this is the sort of palette that I would choose, because it's my perfect soft glam neutral everyday makeup, but elevated. The shimmers are just absolutely stunning. I find it hard, you know, not to always do this palette or not to always use it. The shimmers are so wet looking. This shade is stunning, and there's so many options for tones and for depths, but it's all neutral, and I just absolutely love it. It's overtaken Bieber in like my all-time favorite neutral palettes, because it's just got everything you could possibly need. It's got far more shimmers than Bieber, and the formulas in here are equally as superior to that, with the creamiest mattes, the most stunning wet look metallic shimmers, and everything is an absolute dream to play with. I think it's just delightful, and I absolutely love it, and I'd happily wear these neutral shades for the rest of my days. It's so pretty, and I just find it so flattering and so fun, and I'm reaching for it all of the time. I'm getting so much use out of it, which is really important to me as to how much I love a palette. If I'm only going to reach for it on the odd occasion, you know, it's not going to become a real love, whereas this is something that I'm reaching for all of the time. As you know, with the Icy Nude, I'm just excited to use it whenever I come and look at my eyeshadow palettes of the day. I'm excited to use those palettes. I do really love the midi size as well. I feel like it's just the perfect size, shape, number of shadows, size of mirror, number of looks for a palette. It just is, it's the perfect number for me. My hand is now raw from trying to remove all of the glitter that is covering my poor hand. But those are my top 10 palettes ranked for 2024. Let me know what your thoughts are. Were there any surprises? Was this exactly as you expected? Did anything fall lower or higher than you thought? Let me know, and please let me know what your number one eyeshadow palette was for 2024. Was it the same as mine? Was it one of these? Was it something altogether different? Please let me know in the comments section down below. But thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I would love to see you in the next one. Otherwise, take care for now. Bye 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 bye.